In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to fix a recoil starter that won't recoil on an ATV. First thing I need to do is gain access to the recoil starter. That means all this plastic needs to come off. Not too difficult, just need to remove a screw, a couple more screws, a couple bolts, no big deal. So whatever four-wheeler you're working on, go ahead and get access to that recoil starter. Once you have access to it, you just need to take the cover off. I was stuck on there, so used a brass hammer to kind of just lightly tap it off without hurting it too bad. I always like to, when I have it off, look inside and just kind of check out what the belt's looking like. This quad is a, I don't know, this is like an 06 or an 07. It's one of the first years for the Z90. I don't know what year that was, but things actually don't look too bad in there, so that's good. Once we have this off, the first thing I like to do is try to increase tension on the spring. For most of you, this is what'll fix your problem. Now, recoil starters, everyone I've ever seen, will somewhere have a little notch that this pull rope can fit into. Hoping you can see this here on the camera, but there's a little notch right there on mine. And what you need to do is, I tend to use some needle nose pliers. Other people will use like a screwdriver or something like that, but I will line this little notch up here and then pull the rope. I think my thumb's in the way a little bit, but pull the rope up into that notch and just get a nice little loop going there, if you can see it. And then, to increase the tension, I will pull this rope all the way around a complete loop. And so I'm just pulling it all the way around and getting a nice loop going on this. This one's a little hard to do. But once I've got it pulled all the way around, then I can just take the rope and pull it out. And what that does is it increases tension on my pull rope. So now, as you can see, it's already wanting to rewind better than it was before. So for most people, that's going to fix it.
Sorry to interrupt, but if this video has helped you, then help us by clicking the subscribe button. Thanks.
So you can go ahead and do the exact same thing again to further increase tension on your spring if it's still kind of pulling out and not going all the way back in. But it is possible to go too far. And so this spring being bad, I have taken it in to the point that I'm still not getting retraction, and I have this thing so far in that it's actually hitting the end of the rope before it's hitting the end of its spring, if that kind of makes sense. So this was where I actually increased tension too far, and it doesn't help things. So that's why we're going to go ahead and replace this spring today, which is a good thing because I wanted to show you that anyway. Just kind of remember the order that everything was in. As you take it apart. Go ahead and crack this thing open now. I guess I should show you. There's a nut right there. Put into this. See if I can hold it with my hands. There we go. Start loosening it up. That's better. Just kind of remember the order that everything was in. As you take it apart. That could be stronger. This is the actual spring that you end up replacing. I spray some carb cleaner in and I'm just cleaning it out real good. Do the same thing from the other parts. When you get these all apart, it's always a good idea to clean them up. And specifically, one area that I like to clean, at least on these Z90 setups, that can be problematic is the little ridge inside this plastic sprocket that holds this. You can probably tell this one seems a little hard to move, and this actually does kind of twist and turn around a little bit when you're pull starting these, and so I like to just pop it out so that I can clean it up real good. So I just separated that, and then it ought to pull right down and out, and I dropped it, but that's fine. And then I'll clean this up real good. I'm going to be installing a brand new spring today, and I believe that's what most of y'all should do as well. Now, in my case, this spring's pretty wore out. That's definitely part of the reason why mine wouldn't recoil. And a new spring's only $20 to $30, and it makes putting this back together way, way easier because it already comes tightly wound and like it needs to be. But in case you happen to be installing your old spring again, maybe you cleaned it up, maybe you didn't mean to have this come out, let me go ahead and show you the trick to doing it. This will also come in handy in case you mess up when putting in your new spring, because that's definitely happened to me before, where I'm trying to slide this new spring in and I get distracted or something like that, and it pops out and suddenly my brand new spring's unwrapped. So what I do in those cases, how I would put this back in this itty bitty little tiny housing, is I take a wood block, I put a nail in it, and I use a drill. Let me show you how to do that real quick. Now, I saw a video by Take a Bath Productions. It's another really good YouTube channel that first introduced me to this method, and since using it a few times, I now have made some modifications to his method that I find work really well and make it even easier. And so that's what I'm showing here. So what you need to do is take a roofing nail or some type of nail. I like one that has a little bit of a head on it, and put it in a block of wood or just into anything. Then you take your spring and you take wherever your spring is going into, and in this case, this is one of the most difficult recoil starter springs to put back together, because I don't know if you can tell, but this thing is very, very small, which means this has to be wound super tight. And where most go in the housing, this one actually goes on the I don't know what you call this, but the reel, I guess is what this is called. But wherever your notch is for this outside piece, you need to look at that and figure out which direction it needs to be wound. So I know that I need this to lay in this direction when I put it back in, and so that's the direction I'm putting it on the nail. Now I'm going to take my drill and I'm going to close this bit up to the point that it's almost tight on there, but I don't want to make it all the way tight. That way it's easy to get back off. And so I'm putting that on the center part of the spring, and I'm just going to kind of sit it in here anywhere that I can get it, and I'm just going to kind of not tightening it all the way. I want to be able to slide it back off. That's the key here. Now I'm going to take some vice grips, needle nose vice grips, and have them kind of on standby. And in this case, the way this one goes into this reel, I'm actually going to reverse my drill to wind it, but yours may be different. So now I'm just going to start winding with my hand kind of over it. This is going to wind up nice and tight. And now, like I said, I've got to go super tight to be able to fit this one in. And I'm just keeping my hand there, making sure it doesn't pop back up. Whoop, like that. And if it does, not a big deal. You just straighten it back out. And so I'm going tighter and tighter. Oh. And tighter. And once I feel like I have it small enough, if I can keep it from popping up, there we go. Once I have it small enough, I'm just going to kind of support my drill with my legs, then grab these needle nose vice grips and clamp it. There we go. Now they're clamped. Once you have the vice grips on there, then you can just slide that right off. And now I can insert it in here. I get it all the way down in there and see it's in there, and then I can pop this off while slowly kind of holding everything in and just letting it slowly wind back out to the tension it needs to be at. Okay, the first thing I like to do is just go ahead and take just a dab of grease or lubricant of some sort, and I like the grease. Oh, come on now. This little shaft right here, just a little bit. That way, when this is in there and spinning, it's lubricated. You can put a little extra on there if you care to. Clean my fingers off. Now, when you're installing a new spring, you only have one shot at it, because it's got this little thing keeping the tension on it, and you do not want it to come off that thing until you're good and ready to have it installed. So what I like to do is I just go ahead and kind of wind this up kind of close to how I want it. I make sure I have everything ready, and maybe go ahead and test fit how you're going to put it in. Just going to go just like that. Looks good. Now, you see it has this little hook there, and that little hook's going to go right into that. And so that's where I'm kind of putting this on here. So I kind of get it down in the slot like so, and then I'm just going to very gently push it in there. I'm going to kind of keep fingers over this, because at some point here this is going to come off. We're just going to be very, very gentle, and then we're going to slowly let this kind of unwind inside there. I don't know if you can see, but I'm just trying to make this as controlled as I possibly can, so that it doesn't come out in any way. It's a lot of tension on it. Pull that up and out. Okay. Okay, once I feel pretty good about where it's at, then we're just going to go ahead and install it. Flip it over, put it right on down in there. There we go, there it went all the way down. That's what we want. So now it's all the way in there. So now, whatever you do, don't start playing with this thing. because this thing can pop out pretty easily. So this is, I'm going to keep kind of my fingers on it. I'm going to go ahead and take this, put it back on. This kind of screws in backwards. Make sure the whole time you're doing this stuff, you're keeping your tension on there. Now, washer, put it on there, get it down. You got a spring that goes on there, and then this. Now this only fits a certain way, and that tells you that you have it on correctly, because it's kind of a squared off hole in there. Let me see where. There we go. There's mine on. Then there's another little washer and the nut. This is a 10 millimeter. Just gonna go ahead and tighten this sucker down real nice so that it all can't come back out again. In the beginning of the video, I showed you how to increase tension on the spring. Once you've got this all back together, what you may have to do is wrap this a couple times the same way I showed in the beginning to get the appropriate amount of tension on that new spring. And so just do that, and then when you're all finished, it's going to be working good as new. There we go. I love seeing people learn how to perform their own automotive repairs, and I'm glad my video is able to help you do this. If you haven't already, please tap that subscribe button. We just bought 90 acres of raw land that we plan to turn into our dream farm, so you might even want to tap that notification bell in the middle of the subscribe button so you can follow us on our journey of good, clean, dirt road living. Plus, I'll be posting lots more how-to videos. I appreciate you.